think we're live. Hang on. Things changed. They updated. Oh wait, yeah. I think I'm halfway positive, almost positive, 90% positive that we are live now. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Move over, kids. How are you? Just another Sunday night where we hang out, chill out. We've got Bandana Gamer. We traded Devin, though, Rat Boy, for Bandana Gamer. They're in a blood feud right now, so they can't be seen on camera together. No, Devin, I guess he allergies or something. I don't know. And
no, I put a hit out on him.
Oh yeah, okay.
I poisoned him. I mean, that's just going to be what it is.
So what's up, guys? Bandana, where you been the last 2 weeks?
Oh man, all kinds of crazy shenanigans. So 1 week was just a conflict with church stuff and having to be present at a racial justice gathering. And then the next week we decided we are both fully vaxxed, so we wanted to come back home where our families are in the good old state of Georgia and see our families. And so I was driving, and that's about a 10-hour drive. So.
Wow.
In the car and kind of loopy after a 10-hour drive. Didn't think I would be a great personality. I'd be like,
you would have been the best then, loopy Bandana.
Loopy John. Yeah, we'll get that one day. But yeah, no, just that's what's been going on. But I'm glad to be back. I've missed everyone.
Let's do an 11 p.m. show one time where we're just drinking the whole show.
Welcome to your Move Over Kids After Dark.
Right.
Wait, can David drink?
Yeah, are you able? Legally?
As long as there's a guardian's present, then I can.
Yeah, I think the age is lower in Mexico, right, to drink. So, all right, well, I got on my thumbnail for this week the Zelda 35th anniversary. Do you think there's gonna be one, and what would you like? Because for this, what would you expect? What I don't know. And if they did, would Breath of the Wild have to fall within the 35th anniversary? Is it too much, Zelda? I mean, we're already. Or is it not possible because they've already did Skyward Sword, and that should have been saved for part of the 35th anniversary? I don't know. What do you think?
Wait, when you say Breath of Wild, are you saying should Breath of Wild 2 come out, or should Breath of Wild be on a 35th anniversary collection?
Oh no, just 2 should come out.
Oh, okay.
What are your what would you see the perfect celebration of Zelda?
David, you go, man.
Yeah,
because
there's a Mario 35th, and then they even have a Dragon Quest 35th.
That's because. Wait, do they have a Dragon? They don't. Wait, what is Dragon Quest 35th?
Didn't they just have a Google it? But didn't they just have a?
They're about to.
Yeah, they're about to have.
That's about to come out. Whatever, they're having a celebration. They haven't announced.
Yeah, but it's in the same. Yeah, a celebration. They haven't announced any games, and we're all fingers crossed what it's going to be. And but it's in the same. They have it in the same the little bubble that has the
slime
pixel. The slime that has the wings.
It's May 25th. There is an event for that and Monster Hunter.
So
get back to Zelda.
But it's in the same art form that the Mario one is. So this has to be spearheaded by Nintendo, in a way. Why wouldn't they do Zelda? Especially after Breath of the Wild. I feel Breath of the Wild was really Zelda's coming out party as, we're tied with Mario as the franchise. For gamers, at least. Obviously not the public. But for gamers, Zelda Breath of the Wild literally said, we're there. We're right there with Mario.
Yeah.
Definitely say it's probably Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess or something like that.
Oh God, the Majora's Mask people would just die if that happened.
Or they could learn from. Well, I don't know if Nintendo would acknowledge it as learning, because I don't know if they saw it as a mistake. But Mario 3D All Stars was a success for them. Seems like.
Yeah. And
they provided 3 games as opposed to 4, which is Galaxy 2 that they missed out on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, going off of that logic, I don't think they would have to provide Majora's Mask
Mhm.
they could just stay with Ocarina of Time. I
Yeah,
would
that's
say.
an interesting scenario though. Like,
No.
should Majora's Mask be included? On one hand, yes, because it's the direct sequel, and you have the two N64 games, blah blah blah. But on the other hand, no, because it's not really too much of a Zelda game. I mean,
See, I think if they were to do a 35th anniversary collection, I think you're going to get Ocarina, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker. I realize my logic doesn't hold up because I was going to say because we got those HD things on the Wii U.
But they haven't come. They haven't come
Yeah.
to the Switch in any way.
Would we get? Yeah. I don't know. Like I would expect them to come like Wind Waker and what's it? Twilight Princess HD. I would expect those as solo releases. I don't see Nintendo. I mean,
I just love hearing. I can already hear $60 for a game that they released on the last system.
$60 for a game that they re-released on the last system and released on a prior system.
Yeah, new Twilight Princess. Let's get it all. Let's do backwards compatibility on the N64 and the Super
64.
Nintendo even.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like I feel like a collection have games. I think we'd see the original Link Adventures of Link. I would love to see a collection with the portable stuff, Minish Cap, Oracles.
Heck yeah, dude. That would be insane to be able to get those. And it can even still be the same exact. They don't have to do Link's Awakening treatment even. I mean, it would be awesome if they did.
Yeah,
but
I would love that.
I really don't care. Just to be able to play. Now, I would expect like 4 or 5, almost all of them on it for if they didn't do any real artwork. But would you do $60 for a 1-to-1 Oracle of Seasons and Ages? Like nothing.
Just those two. Just those two.
Just
games?
those two.
Just
nothing updated. No nothing. Literally
No.
just those two. $60.
No,
No.
I think that's a $40 at best.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah, at best,
And
for
you
sure.
you really need to be including like a visual art museum
Or a
and,
soundtrack
like,
thing.
soundtrack thing, and like a lot. You got to throw extras on that.
I'm not gonna lie. I would buy it with a smile
Of course
on my
you
face.
would.
I'd be
Of
like,
course you would.
We didn't expect anything else.
You would be
from
like,
you,
hey,
kid.
here's $80. You just keep the change because that's
Right.
what this is worth. I think you might have an argument if you throw Minish Cap on there as well.
All right.
So you have those three because those three don't get a lot of love.
What if they threw on Triforce Heroes instead?
Oof. I mean, I got that. Listen, that was like $5 there for a while.
I know.
I mean,
yeah.
Nintendo could surprise us. Nintendo doesn't surprise me anymore, if that makes sense, because I kind of expect it to. And I'm not speaking out against them or anything, but when it comes to things like that, I'm not surprised. When 3D All Stars only has 3 games, doesn't have Galaxy, could include more. It is possible to include more on a cart. But they could surprise us and give us like 5 Zelda games.
What if
like
they
that.
gave us Zelda Maker? And like you had a down, and this guy, like I want to say this comes from like Nick Clanton. Like, what if Zelda Maker came with the 8-bit Breath of the Wild?
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool actually, because then it's not total. It's like not just a total like. Gosh, that would be sweet. That would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Hardcore Retro Gamer says, I want Zelda Ocarina of Time HD, Majora's Mask HD, Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, Breath of the Wild 2 for the Nintendo Switch or Switch Pro. I mean, don't we all? I mean, we all want that.
I want Zelda Everything HD. Just Zelda Everything HD.
Zelda HD. We just this is it. Like, I think it'd be really cool to remake 1 as Breath of the Wild DLC. I think that there would be some cool stuff you could do.
Did you know the first Zelda game takes place only on Death Mountain?
I didn't know that, but
it's pretty much Death Mountain. That's it. And then like every other game since then, Death Mountain just a thing, part of it.
I can see that.
And
That's such a good game.
Death Mountain is such an intimidating, like, evil name. It's
Yeah.
like more intimidating than
they
Ganon's
went,
Castle.
I think that's what they were going for, actually.
I
But
mean,
it's just full of like peaceful Gorons, you know? Like
now.
now
I mean,
that
back in the like, listen here, fetus. Like when you actually played the original Zelda game, there was no Gorons to hug.
well,
Everything could kill you on Death Mountain. Everything.
yeah,
It was dangerous to go alone. That's why you got a sword.
I remember the burning rocks falling from the sky for sure. But you know, now that the Gorons have found peace and tranquility, they got to change the name, man. Well, Valgia is not a threat anymore.
Cute little mountain.
Peace Mountain. I don't know.
Ken, when did you play? Or Ken's doing something.
Yeah, I'm doing something. Sorry.
All right, I'll throw this over to David, or David and Ken. When was the first time you played a Zelda game? Like, and what do you remember from your first Zelda? David, I'm assuming Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild. Talking about it with your second grade friends. Go.
It was definitely Ocarina of Time. Like it was A Link to the Past, and I've told the story in the past that that's one of like my, like, when you think of when you first played games, you have very, very blurry memories of, like, you know, just like pictures in your mind of like, wow, that was like one of the first games I played. There's A Link to the Past, and it was rainy and stormy, and he was just like going around the little town, and that was a really long time ago. And then I played Ocarina of Time. That was my first actual Zelda game that I played and beat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question, and you can keep going. You need a minute to think. First off, I just want to say hi to everyone. For some reason, I didn't have the chat up. I had a different window up, so I wasn't even like thinking about all the people in chat. So I'm reading all your comments now. Hunter, Nick, everybody, Retro Gamer. Second off, what are your memories of every Zelda game you've ever played?
Okay, so
your first memory, the thing that, or maybe the thing that really stands out, if you don't have your first real memory.
I mean, I remember like having just a knowledge of Zelda was out there, the game. And I remember it was the first thing I ever took games into a store to trade for. And I had to get Zelda. I had to have that gold cartridge. And coming home, playing the first level, not really like trying to figure out like, wait, I just got the Triforce. Why is the game not over? And having to learn like the 8 other levels. And that's my first one. And then
what did you know of Zelda out there? Like, what did you like? Did you see it like
on a
commercial or?
I remember the animated series, and then I just remember it being about knights and dragons. That was in my mind. Like, I don't know where that came from. Like, it was a medieval kind. I was like, I'm down. I want to. You can go anywhere. That sounds so cool.
Okay, so that's the first Zelda game. Now let's go to David. David, any of the first NES Zelda game? This is just to be a Zelda podcast, so I can like. I'm just gonna like have a nerdgasm all of this.
You're asking about like Zelda 1?
Zelda 1. Have you ever played it? Have you ever heard of Zelda 1?
Like, I played it, but it was probably like in my teenage years.
What did you think of it as a teenager? What was that? Like 2016?
The teenager was 2007.
Tonight on Zelda and David is a baby.
And I Ken, don't hate me, but the Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 are boring to me.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just.
I hate you.
I mean, I can go with you on Zelda 2. Like, they were trying to experiment and do some things.
Well, back it up though. I want to hear Teenage David. Like, suddenly, I'm gonna play. Like, he's played Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time, and so now he's going back to where it all begins, and it's just lets him down. Tell me about that.
I guess because I expected something else, but it's.
What did you expect from an NES game?
From Zelda 1, I expected it to hold my attention longer. I feel like I can do some pains, maybe like 5 pains, and then I'm done. I feel like I've experienced the entire game. You know, shooting arrows is pretty cool. but Octoroks get kind of annoying, and I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this.
You're an Octorok. You, sir, are an Octorok.
And then when I got my DSi at Sam's Club like 11 years ago, it advertised that you get Mario versus Donkey Kong and Zelda 2 as free downloads. And I played like 10 minutes of Zelda 2, and I was like, I don't want to play this anymore. And
like, which is like, what was
that
the
was
exact feeling? Because you started at some of the greatest Zelda games, and then you like.
I think okay, I get what you're saying. So having played A Link to the Past before Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, I expected it to flow the same way. And
Okay, so
didn't.
Zelda Link to the Past, though, I mean, I can see a lot of like today's kids not liking Link to the Past even because it's not. I mean, think about it.
I loved it.
Going from Breath of the Wild, even Wind Waker, to Link to the Past. That's a big jump in styles. So I can see, but you did like.
Oh, I loved the Link to the Past. It was the first Zelda I played. I was just telling JB about that. And I played it on the Game Boy Advance.
But it was your first Zelda.
It was the first Zelda that I experienced, and even if it was just
and
for
you
like,
played it on Game Boy Advance.
no.
Okay.
I did actually properly play and beat it on the Game Boy Advance, but when I was like 4 years old, I remember playing it at my cousin's house when I would visit him like twice a year. And it was very brief, but I remember playing it and I was very entranced. Like it had my attention.
Okay. It was like Jingle Keys.
Yeah, pretty much. And having that experience in 32-bit, pretty much. Once I went all the way to 16-bit, I don't know. I feel like I was already spoiled. I already expected the art style to be at a certain point and the gameplay to be at a certain point. So when I went down, it's like okay, so let me make the Mario analogy. Super Mario World is my favorite Mario game. But when I would go and play Super Mario Brothers, you just felt like the gameplay was a step down because it wasn't as advanced as Mario World. You couldn't do as much, I guess. So
it's kind of shocking in a way of just like if you're a teenager right now and you didn't actually experience like real Nintendo, just trying to go from Breath of the Wild to NES Nintendo, that is shocking. Now my kids, my 6-year-old and 8-year-old, they're fine with it. If you introduce them young enough, like they're like, whatever, this is fun and that's fun too. But like if there's just no like real,
I'm kind of
shocked.
I'm kind of curious if.
Hey Baggins, I haven't seen you. I think you're new to the channel, so welcome. I'm reading your thing. He wants a Zelda 2 remake with updated graphics like Super Mario All Stars. Go on.
I think I'm curious to know because like. Yeah, when David is when David is coming of age in this era that he came of age, like that was such the high point of great games are 3D. All games that are great are 3D. And we have kind of moved past that, and that's kind of one of the things I really like about the current age of gaming is like great games are great games. Like if you have a small team that does a cool little 2D game that's really good, Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, it's still celebrated. And recognized as a good game. I'm curious if your kids that are growing up in this era, if that's one of the reasons they can contribute. Like 3D isn't new, so they can be equally excited about just good games.
Maybe, and again, it's like what you introduce. Like if I only gave them Pong, they would probably be fascinated with it. But we're at a like.
I mean, you would get in lots of trouble with a lot. To me, I think that's child neglect right there. Just.
But like we live in like I know like honestly I know some parents who's taking their kids skydiving, and I'm like what? Let's forget the safety thing about it. You are just ruining them for so many experiences in their life because they can't just build up to this peak mountaintop experience because they're already there at the age of 8 or 10 or whatever. What I'm saying? Like, don't make them adrenaline junkies at that age. So I forget exactly where I was going with that point though, but like
yeah, it's building blocks essentially.
Yeah,
like when
I was saying like because if I only gave them Pong, they'd be excited. But if I just gave them here's my entire Switch library. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like now though, the entire Switch library does consist of a wide range. Because what if they had Hollow Knight and Breath of the Wild? So maybe they would, like to John's point, you know, it wouldn't be as bad because there's just everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like when I talk to you guys are easily like 15 or 10 to 15 years
I
older.
thought you were
than
about
me,
to
right?
say 50. I thought you were about
The
to
joke,
say,
the age joke goes both ways, John. If you're gonna call him so young,
Yeah, no. Like, I do want to say I'm like 6 years older than you, 7 years older than you, sir.
I'm just trying to get a window out there, you know, because I forget
7 years. So
all
wait
the
a
time.
second, you're 22.
Yeah. I just graduated college, guys. It's cool.
So I keep being surprised by how little I know about video game history when I came into the world, pretty much, where it's like you guys had NES and SNES and Master System and Genesis. Like that's when you guys were like really, you know, finding your legs in the video game space. I think I think that's what you guys grew up on. Whereas me, my first
That's what
real
we'll have in the home, is what you're trying to say.
yeah, I mean, my first official system was an N64,
Mhm.
and so I didn't really experience NES until later in life. But the SNES and the Master System or Genesis, yeah, that I like my uncle already had these systems, so I didn't have to wait for them. There was no hype. I didn't really know that it was older than the N64 or a PS1. I just knew that there were systems he had. So even now, I'm finding out things about, like, I was asking JB about the Saturn, the Sega Saturn, and I was asking him if like if that was a system that
The Saturn
like
was so weird.
like yeah, like what was the history about the Saturn? Like was it
existed for like 2 years?
right? And so, you know, I was just curious as to like how the transition from the Genesis to the Saturn or the CD or whatever, like how that was, because I didn't really
Very bad.
I didn't really see that unfold. Like I saw the GameCube unfold from this N64 or the Wii from the GameCube. So and the transitions.
Yeah, like I mean, the history stuff is stuff I've come to more later in life. Like I remember being there and like seeing the Saturn in my microplay, I think was the name of the video game store, and just being like, I want a Saturn. Saturn's pretty. It's cool. Look at these.
Did you have a Saturn like
Yeah.
while it was new?
Yeah, I had a Saturn. Right, not at launch, but right near close, and I got Street Fighter Alpha, which to me looked like playing a cartoon, which was amazing. Virtua Fighter. But like going back and reading Console Wars, which everybody should read Console Wars if you like video games. Because you're right, like that. I honestly think that era, Nintendo, Genesis, the transition to Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1 and a later Nintendo 64 is one of the most fascinating in terms of history. It was just such a like wild, like Atari and Nintendo and the NES were like the settling of the frontier. This is like when it's wild, wild west, and you have like saloons and like Sega is coming in with steel chairs or they're 6-shooters trying to like draw them into firefights. I went from like Wild West to professional wrestling.
Yeah, I heard. I caught the ECW reference.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just it is such a fascinating period, and then the transition and Sega, like Nintendo didn't kill Sega. Sega killed Sega.
I caught the Bret Hart reference.
That's another.
The Nick said he was working at KB Toy Stores and he was like there was no hype whatsoever around the Sega Saturn and
no,
Baggins
because
like, Saturn didn't have a game lineup when it was released.
Well, they tried to do a shock launch. I mean, they angered
say
their
like wasn't it like we're gonna November 30th and then they really did July 30th or something?
Yeah,
like that?
no, they were like it's gonna be a holiday. It's gonna be a holiday. Got to E3, it's out. And only Best Buy and a few other retailers had it, so all the other retailers were pissed.
But
Yeah,
here's the thing.
and
like,
they rushed it, and they didn't actually have great games for
but
it.
I just wonder, like, what, like, obviously, if it doesn't succeed, it's a bad idea. But if it does succeed, it's a brilliant idea. Like, what if Nintendo had just dropped, like, March 3rd, the Switch, and then December 12th, here you go. Brilliant, Nintendo. We love you, Nintendo. It's so great. They created demand. You know what I mean? It's just hard.
I mean, you're compared to also like pre-internet age. Like people,
that's a good point.
We weren't, it was get announced at E3 1 month later. Electronic Gaming Monthly gets to our hands.
You're right.
And by
that's
that time, we've wandered into Best Buy. I'm like, oh, what is a Saturn?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And so I could spend a whole time on because I love Sega. I'm a Nintendo kid at heart. I'm a Nintendo, but it's like being a Marvel and DC kid. I like both, but I'm really a DC guy. But the Saturn was such a interesting attempt, and then they cut their own legs out from themselves so many times in the lead up to the Saturn, and then as the Saturn did not do well, they then cut their legs out from under them again. It's just really fascinating stuff.
But again, but here's the thing, so the Sega Saturn, it comes out and it is only on the shelves for 2 years, and then they're like, okay, Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast fails.
It was 3. You can debate whether or not how much of a failure the Dreamcast was.
Well, it wasn't enough success that it saved the company.
Well, they were anxious because PlayStation. Yeah, do we want to get into me? We were discussing Zelda because I'm getting on my soapbox, and I don't want to take time away from David, who wasn't there. He's just talking to David is like an old man talking about Pearl Harbor to his grandkids. I was there for the console war.
I guess it was 3. I guess it was 3 years.
It was 95 to 98.
Yeah,
and
I'm just saying, what if the Switch, what if Nintendo had killed the Wii U after 2 to 3 years, and then put out the Switch? You know what I mean? I don't know. Again, though, you're right. The internet does change things.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
But systems are coming out faster this generation. I mean, if you think about it, the Switch was introduced in November of 2016, and it was out 5 months later. That was a thing, and in my opinion, that was fast because when
you mean from introduction to conception?
Because the GameCube, if you look at it, they were in my opinion, I felt like that was a 2-year thing where they were just alluding to something, and the Wii with the revolution.
The Switch was the same thing. I mean, we were hearing they've decided we've got it was called the NX, right?
Yeah, NX.
We heard, which to me was similar when the GameCube was about, we were hearing about Dolphin, and we heard about Dolphin being developed. We heard about NX being developed.
I forgot about the NX. I agree with that then.
Yeah, we heard about the Katana, which became the Dreamcast. So yeah.
So in a paragraph, why did Sega fail?
Why did Sega fail?
Yeah, why did they exit the console war? You've got till 7/31.
I got till 7. Okay.
8/31.
Why did they fail? Nintendo of Japan really was jealous of Nintendo of America's success with the Saturn or the Genesis / Mega Drive. They could not figure out a cohesive strategy of how to launch the next generation. So one thing they come out with the 32X because bits are the thing. And so we've got this add-on, but what David's talking about, there's rumblings there's another system. Sega screws up the system in 2 ways. One, Sony came to them after they had been spurned by Nintendo with a deal. Here's a PlayStation, let's put this out. Sega's nah. Actually, there's 3. A small chip company that can make a 3D processor comes to Sega, and they're
60 seconds.
This is the chip we want you to put in. America gets behind it. Sega of Japan's no, we want to make another 2D system, which I think is awesome, but at the same time, the era did not support that. So they tell America they can't make this. You make a system with this chip, and so that chip system goes to be what the base of the Nintendo 64 is. And how they marketed it just was piss poor. And so Sega, they built up so much trust with the Genesis, building the brand, and within a 2-year phase, hit with the 32X and then the terrible launch of the Saturn,
And time.
they killed it.
Time. That was it. I will sum it up in one sentence. 2 sentences. Nintendo rules. Genesis, Sega drools. That's pretty much it.
I'll give you that one. I'll just go back to stroking my Super Nintendo cartridge.
Pesty, what up?
What up, Pesty?
What's up, man?
Church is over, Pesty says, so he's with us. Back to Zelda. Tell me, Pesty, look, it's still here. Look at that. It's like my new prized possession. My only like Zelda item here. You know what? I have an idea for the first video that's not a podcast for the longest time on this channel. It's just like my personal impressions, like Zelda memories. And I think I kind of did this a long time ago on my channel in regards to like my top 5 Zelda games. But like, I don't know, maybe I'd do that again. I'd probably want to do it when I get my own place and I actually have like good backgrounds. I don't know. But like, tell me your first memory or fondest memory of Wind Waker.
Me or
Nah,
I'll go first.
No, we'll let
I'll go
David go
first.
first. You were just talking a lot.
Okay.
I want to go first. No, I don't want David to talk. He's a baby. Super gay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, David.
I was on the bus on the way to school and I saw some screenshots from Wind Waker, and they were definitely beta shots because they looked very different than the final game.
Was it the beta shots of not anime cartoon Link? The more Twilight Princess.
You're
Wind
asking
Waker?
about Space World footage?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
It was still Wind Waker Link, but like some of the barrels looked different. It was definitely beta stuff.
I want to hear it, Hunter. Tell me.
He's like pushing a box through like the little corridors that you like crawl under. And one of my friends on the bus was like, "That's stupid. Why would they make it into a cartoon?" Literally is what he said. And me being the glass half full kind of guy, benefit of the doubt kind of guy when it comes to games. I was like, no, this is cool. Like, this is interesting, like I was like, in my mind, I'm like, are they really doing this? Like, is this really something that Nintendo would do given the success of like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask? And I just remember I was like, is this like a fake thing? But if it's real, then that's really cool. And then of course, a few months later, Wind Waker was something that was on the GameCube. But that's my first memory with it. And then I didn't actually play the game until the HD release. So.
Oh wow, why?
Well, to sum it up, I was poor as hell, man. So there was only like.
Why were you so poor? Why didn't you just get money?
I know.
Like...
So easy. Like, I should have just planted a tree or something. I don't know.
I can't stand when poor people are just poor. They
I
don't
know,
just
right?
Get money. All right, Bandana. What's your Wind Waker memory?
So my Wind Waker memory was I was very intrigued. Like I remember a lot of the arguments about the graphics. Everyone was whining about the graphics. And so honestly, I think one of the first things I remember people whining about on the internet. And I had kind of skipped the Nintendo 64. I was a PlayStation 1 guy. Final Fantasy VII for life. And so I didn't really play Ocarina. I had touched it a little bit, but I was like, okay, it's Link to the Past in 3D. Cool. And so they had the deal. They announced that they had the pre-order bonus that you could go pre-order it at Walmart. You could put $5 down, and then they gave you a disc with Ocarina and the Master Quest that had not been released in the US. So I played around with that. I really liked Ocarina. I know it's not the best version, but it was cool at that time. And then when it came out, I remember me and my friend Steven and my friend Ben spent the night at Steven's house. I went and got the game after school. We went to their house and just played it all night. And like Steven had been a guy who had been complaining about the graphics. And like halfway through the night, like early morning, he was like, "That was dumb. I shouldn't have been complaining about this. This is brilliant." And it was just like that is my favorite 3D Zelda, just because of how brilliant those graphics were.
Some people in the chat, Hunter said his first experience. He remembers tonight that it was Wind Waker as he got a haircut, like because he was getting his haircut at a salon or something, and they had it was there for him to play, to keep him like occupied because he's a kid or whatever. Question though, David, was it since you eventually were able to play Wind Waker many moons later, did it live up to the hype then that had surrounded that game? Again, Zelda 1 is a masterpiece, but when you finally got to play it 20 years later, it sucked to you. Wind Waker is a masterpiece, but 10 years later, you finally got to play it. What was your experience?
Well, I did play several demos, and like I remember Dragon Roost Island I played when it came out. But when I actually played the HD version and I dived like head first, that game actually blew away my expectations. The exploration, I think what it did with that game, what Nintendo did with Wind Waker, is essentially my favorite parts of Ocarina of Time, if that makes sense. Like you're going through a dungeon or the open area of Hyrule, and you find a little notch in the ground, you fall down, and then you see the hidden area with the music, and there's a little pond, and it had that, but on steroids with Wind Waker. You would set sail, and then you'd find this little island that wasn't on your trajectory or on the map. You'd find it, then you have like this little mini dungeon, and it was pretty much like exploration, the video game, in my opinion, like from what I saw. And so that blew my expectations away, and Wind Waker is a 10 out of 10 for sure. So,
do y'all feel like Wind Waker is really the most clearest link to Breath of the Wild? Like
I did for a while, but then the Twilight, there's a comment that was like Twilight Princess, until they actually said, oh yeah, it's the end of all three timelines, which is such a cop out. They like there was too much proof that revolved around
no. I mean, I'm not talking about like the convoluted timelines. I'm talking about just in terms of the gameplay.
Oh,
like is Wind Waker really what you look back and like that's the one that really evolved into Breath of the Wild? Because I think about exploring and like just seeing things, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go steer my boat over here.
That's a good point. I could see that. The only thing I would say is that Anuma himself, and for those who don't know, Anuma is basically the guy in charge of the Zelda franchise right now. He said that Skyward Sword actually was. And I can't comment on it because, like, I couldn't deal with those motion controls to the point that I quit the game right after the 3-hour-long tutorial. And it was just, and he said stuff like, we wanted to do what we're doing in Breath of the Wild in Skyward Sword, but we didn't have the capabilities. And I could see what he was talking about in the examples that were shown. So out of the games that I played, yes, to answer your question, Wind Waker is like that. Oh yeah, I see something. What's that? Like, why is there like funny wind over there? Let me go look at it. And then suddenly you're sucked up by the Toad tornado. But Skyward Sword, I mean, Anuma thinks it's Skyward Sword, and maybe it is Skyward Sword. I just can't comment on that because I'm not going to play it until July. And I understand why people dislike the Ocean's King Temple in Phantom Hourglass. Oh, yeah, Hunter is a huge Phantom Hourglass. He's like one of 3 huge Phantom Hourglass fans in the world. So he's always talking about Phantom Hourglass, though. It was his first Zelda game, and typically speaking, your first Zelda game is your favorite Zelda game. Unless, I mean, even with the old school Nintendo fans, oh yeah, and Zelda 1, that's the best because it introduced, the open world map and stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, it might have introduced it, but it doesn't mean it's the best one. I mean, you just like it the best because you were a child.
Link to the Past is the best one. I think we could all agree there.
Breath of the Wild, actually. And I'm with Pesty. I didn't think anything could ever top Wind Waker. No way could any game top Wind Waker, and then Breath of the Wild did. Although Wind Waker ends more satisfying because the boss battle at Wind Waker is just that is an asterisk on a 10 out of 10 game, because it's like it's a 10 out of 10, but the last game it sucks at the end. You know, that's how good the game is, though. Even with a crappy ending, it's still 10 out of 10. You know, which is pretty amazing. What was your first Ocarina of Time? Because you said you were did you even play it? Because you hate the N64, right?
I'm
Represent.
Yeah, what the heck? Hate? Yeah, I'll say I hate the N64. Yeah, I mean, I played it. I just wasn't impressed with it. Like I said, I realized this much later in life, and I think it was because of something said on Retronauts. I played Ocarina and was like, oh, this is just Link to the Past again. They just put it in a little jumpy thing. It just did not wow me. It did not do anything for me, and everything else that I wanted to play was on PlayStation. So, yeah, that was my first experience with it. I wanted to like it. I tried to convince myself I liked it.
Even if it was just a super hyped up Link to the Past, what's so bad about that?
Yeah. I'd done it. I was a teenager at the time. I've been there. I'd done that. I got that T-shirt. And I felt like PlayStation had just better stuff going for it. Final Fantasy 7, 8 was out at that point. Metal Gear Solid. I just thought that it just did not do enough to woo me to really focus on it. And I did enjoy it when I came to it on the GameCube, and I really enjoyed it when I came to it on the 3DS as a much older person. When I put my thick reading glasses on to play it on the 3DS. Yeah, after I've flown my kite in the thunderstorm to discover electricity to power my 3DS. That's
a Ben Franklin reference.
David. Which David calls me Ben Franklin all the time, so that's why I was going that route. And he's just like stone faced. But yeah, like I liked it then. I really liked it on the 3DS. Played it a lot, and I think that's where I finally beat it. Was on the 3DS. I don't think I ever beat it on any other console. It just didn't move me at the time. I didn't hate it. I wasn't like, this game is stupid, but I wasn't like, this game is the greatest game. And there was a lot of people at that point in time talking about it, talking about how we talk about Breath of the Wild now. I don't think there's been a Zelda game to achieve the level of hype like Ocarina and Breath of the Wild have.
Did Wind Waker achieve that hype?
There was so much fussing. It did overcome a lot of
you're right. There was too much negative going in, and then it had to turn the tide, and now it's looked at as a masterpiece. So I think it did live up to the hype 10 years later because it had to fight back so much hate.
Yeah.
God, I love Wind Waker. God, that game is so good. If I could marry a game, it would be Wind Waker, but then I would cheat on it with Breath of the Wild, and I would get married to Breath of the Wild, and we'd have a messy divorce.
I really do wish there was I wish they could patch in or update and put in the missing dungeon.
Oh yeah,
I would love that. If you want to talk about something that would be awesome for Zelda 35, the missing dungeon from Wind Waker.
Dude, and Nintendo should be such a jerk about it. Be like, missing dungeon, $100.
No, it's locked away behind an amiibo.
And Devin would be like, 120, and thank you for this opportunity, sir.
Oh, that is an excellent comment, David. Because let's talk about that, actually. The Skyward Sword coming out July something.
Can I quickly say something about Ocarina of Time? Because no one hyped that game up for me.
Sorry, no.
I got it at a...
Shut up.
I got it at a...
Shut up.
I got it at a flea market. No hype behind it. And I felt that was my favorite game of all time when I was that age. That was with no hype from the internet or marketing or anything like that. And that experience is what made me fall in love with video games to the next level. But what's criminal is that because I didn't really have any marketing or this video game space where we all talk and The internet was different at the time. I completely missed out on Majora's Mask. Like that's a spiritual success or spiritual sequel or whatever you want to call it, or direct sequel. Ken says it's direct sequel.
Yeah, that's a direct sequel.
I missed out on it. Like that didn't even cross me until like 10 years later, and that's criminal because I love that game so much, and it's literally the same assets, the same polygonal assets, like, and so I feel like that is like a bad thing that happened to this universe is that I never crossed that at that time because my love for Zelda at that point was red hot, and I don't know why I didn't.
Although maybe it was a blessing. You know how like God sometimes doesn't answer a prayer, and that's the answer because Majora's Mask sucked so hardcore that maybe you didn't want to play that game.
I don't know what you're trying to fabricate in my universe, Ken, but
So, should we be terrified because direct Zelda sequels are never very well received? I'm thinking of 2 of them.
All right, let's think of that. Okay, so
You're thinking
Zelda
of, like,
2, sorry, Nick, that sucked.
Phantom Hourglass is what you're saying?
No, I mean, I forget that. Well, I mean, they're not well received. I like them, the DS ones, but
Yeah.
You gotta take.
I'm thinking of like the same console, a sequel that and those aren't like so Link's Away or Adventures of Link, Majora's Mask, and Breath of the Wild 2 now. Like those are the direct sequels on the same console.
Yeah. Because I mean, technically, Link Between Worlds is a direct sequel, but yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Console to console. Yeah.
Should we be worried about Breath of the Wild 2?
No, I think a new one's got it.
Okay.
I just like he better got it. I will like.
Well,
it's really on
on
Twitter with all caps if this game sucks.
What do you determine as sucks? Like if Breath of the Wild is
like
already,
if you just like you know what, I got this awesome system, everything's great. Let me just completely change it and let's put Zelda in for 5 minutes.
like what's gonna be your asterisk for this sequel? Like it's gonna be like, dude, the game is so amazing, but it's just not something. Like there's gonna be a Ken moment there.
Shoot. Well, I wonder if they because for one, now that there's going to be a sense of like exploration that is, they just can't have it unless Link is transported to a new land, and then you run into the Majora's Mask problem. He's he's no longer in Hyrule or this or that. But if he stays in that land, and don't get me wrong, I could pop in Breath of the Wild right now and find stuff that would still fascinate me, but it's not going to be the same. Like, we've already talked to a lot of the villagers, and they're the villages. Yeah, there's going to be different people in the villages now, and with different side quests and different like that, but it's not going to be the same. So will they then? Because that's what Miyamoto does. He's like, well, I just don't want to give them the same experience. So what is it going to be all underworld now?
Low roll.
Yeah, so are we just completely under Hyrule? Because, I mean, that's where they were digging. So now, and then there could be dungeons again because of that. But now are we taking a step back and this just huge advancement of Zelda? Literally bringing Zelda to the masses, updating it in a way that, while still appeasing and satisfying even old fans, are they just going to go back to this same old formula? I don't know. But then is this new formula that they just created, can it be recreated? Because the exploration is no longer there because the map has to be the same because it's in Hyrule. Does that all make sense? Am I making sense here, or am I just kind of talking?
I see what you're saying. I guess I want to follow this up. You've said Breath of the Wild is a 10.
Yeah.
If Breath of the Wild 2 is an 8, does that make it a failure?
Ooh, I don't think so. Only because it's hard because nowadays sequels can live up to, like, you look at, every Marvel movie almost is better than the last.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we might be spoiled by that aspect because we used to live in a world of the never ending story and then the never ending story 2, which was abysmal, or just the sequels always sucked. And so I almost don't view. It would just be very hard to like get a sequel. For me to really think that a sequel is going to be better than the original. Just very hard.
Like if the sequel is good and better than a lot of games out there, but not a 10, not the Breath of the Wild experience.
Yeah.
Like, is that going to be devastating? Is that going to be like, because it's going to be in that shadow? Is that going to like?
It's hard because by saying Breath of the Wild, miserable. Yeah, by saying Breath of the Wild 2, not saying Zelda. Dungeons are back, and because then you have an expectation. Like I was able to enjoy Link's Awakening, because I knew exactly what I was like in for. Right now, my expectations are so high that what if it doesn't meet these unreasonable expectations that I've set for it?
But there hasn't been many Zelda sequels, and Nintendo is making an effort to still stay in this universe for Zelda, and then making this an actual effort on in regards to what I just said. Like they're actually saying we're going into this as a sequel to Breath of the Wild. I think they're taking this really seriously.
It has to be. It has to be a 10 again. It just has to be. If it's not, I'll throw myself out this window. It has to be a freaking 10.
Why do you think? Mario Galaxy 2 exists because they felt like they needed to do more in that universe for Mario. Same thing here. I mean, the formula for Breath of the Wild was so great.
Talbot and Christian,
because they combined like no expectations, exploration, and solid gameplay to where they're like, we could probably do this and even better. And I think that intent alone, seeing that Nintendo doesn't really do sequels often, really, is enough for me to be like, okay, yeah, this is gonna rock for sure.
But I mean, I would have to say like the same intention and same thing as again going into Majora's Mask.
Right. So it's like,
I don't think like Majora's Mask like, we should just phone this in for this next one. I mean, Ocarina was pretty good, but you just want to like
that's my fear.
Man. Throw the moon at them.
If they change it too much, the problem is they're in a scenario where they almost have to change it because the sense of exploration is the thing that most people like really talk about. That just awe-inspiring exploration. But if you look at it, every time Nintendo tries to change something, it suffers. Link, Zelda 2, Majora's Mask. Let's change it up so it's not the same experience, because Miyamoto is all about that. Let's change it up so it's not the same experience. Let's add motion controls to every single game. On what you're saying about Mario Galaxy, though, Mario's a different beast. It's a different type of game that they can almost do that with. When it's the 3D, like the 3D world, the 3D games follow like a certain type of thing, but they still wow you, just like the 2D games follow a certain type of pattern. But with the Zelda games, they don't have that type of pattern. I just don't know. I'm like, if it's an 8, I'll be like, it's a good game, but is no number one, or the first one was better. I'm probably going to say that. There's just no way it's going to live up to my expectations. 'Cause my expectations, like, are just too high. Yeah.
But another thing besides just gameplay is, like, does it warrant, like, a sequel in terms of story? Like, clearly want to tell more of this story. I mean, you even have Age of Calamity, which is kind of like an interim title.
I wish they would just make this into a farming simulator at this point. I would just like play it and I would be content being Link on his like in his little house and just like doing errands all day long, for like making it a giant MMO, and then like every season Ganon like attacks and you got to like defeat him, and then he's like back to normal. Why can't we just see normal Link chilling?
But this sequel is definitely gonna, in my opinion, I think it's definitely gonna shift the Zelda timeline, radically. In my opinion, like it's how. Just ask yourself, how is the game gonna open? Like what?
I mean, haven't we seen the opening?
Yeah, I bet that is the opening that they showed us. Like straight up, I think that is the opening.
I mean, is it?
I mean,
that's a legit question. Like, is it right?
I mean, maybe.
Like,
maybe
like, is Link gonna be in his house and it's like, let's go on an adventure kind of thing? Like, it's that the point I'm trying to make is
that's a good point. Actually, Link is being very proactive in this one instead of just like, let's go on an adventure.
So, yeah, that it's exciting. I'm really excited. And do you guys think that this E3 they will show something?
They better. Like,
if they don't, I have to be on the line with Ken again. That was the only thing that saved that direct was just Ken's like and I'm sorry, I'm that kind of guy that laughs at their friend's misfortune.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch my reaction because I didn't realize that I gave a reaction.
I don't know if it was just being on the conversation and feeling like with the air sucked out of the room, like there will be no mention of Breath of the Wild 2. So
it's gonna be 2 years, Ken. So
they have to.
They have to, right?
Like, they just have to. I know that's like, it's kind of entitled mentality, but call me entitled, dude, because they have to.
They just have to.
Yeah, I have no like real stance to back it up or whatever or why or this or that. And I'm sure Nintendo has all this marketing research, but I'm a 41-year-old dude that says they have to, and they better do it.
Yeah, I think it's
and I'm white. Yeah. So
is it going to be announcement and then release holiday season, you think?
I'm thinking March 3rd.
March of next year?
Yeah. I think they give themselves. I think they do. Nintendo does. Unless they are going to pull out the 35th anniversary thing, which although in Nintendo's eyes, the year will carry over. Like, they literally view the fiscal year as their year as opposed to, like, because I remember Luigi's year was going well into the next year. So I could see Nintendo doing it on the 3rd of March to kind of be 4 years later. But it would be, oh, God.
It'd be so 5.
Cool. 5? Oh, 5 years without Zelda.
Yeah.
Oh, how have I even survived?
That's half a decade, Ken.
I know.
I'm going to say I think it's this year. I think it's this year.
I thought it was last year. That's why I'm just like,
everything got thrown through a loop. You don't want to. You're working on your biggest franchise, and then everyone has to shift to home.
What's that? Hawkeye line? Don't give me hope. Like, don't give me hope.
I think it's this year. I think we're about to see some E3 pressers that are going to blow our minds away. I think for everybody.
I know, dude. God, I hope so. Oh, man, I wanted to talk about the amiibo situation. We'll have to talk about it next week because we're at we only got a minute left.
We do need to talk about one thing. David, Switch Lite. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, why did you get a Switch Lite so many years after it came out? It's like, well, a year or two after it came out, and you have a Switch. Why did you get a Switch Lite?
Because he recognized that the Switch Lite is the best.
It's the form factor for sure. Then I could actually play more Switch games that actually feel like they need to be played portable mode. Like Tropical Freeze, Hades, New Super Mario Brothers, that kind of thing. And it's awesome. I've been playing Xenoblade on it.
And you got it for the color, sir.
I got it for the blue.
You wanted
color.
a purple. You wanted a purple Switch.
So we donned it Blurple. Or Burple, sorry. And but it's definitely not blue, but it's not purple. It's weird. It's like indigo. So, but it's enough for me to jump in. Like I was telling you guys that I when there's a color that I like for a system, it makes me want to play it more. It's just a psychological thing. I don't want to play on a cyan Switch Lite or a yellow. I don't know. If there was a green one or a blue
Pink and blue.
you know, and the gray was just too boring. I feel like if it was a lighter gray, I'd be all in. I'm picky, man.
Just a twinge less, just a twinge.
Yeah, it's but yeah. So
Dude,
it's
if they
awesome,
made a
man.
Game Boy themed Switch Lite, I'd be all over that. Like gray with the like maroon buttons. I'd be there.
But it's awesome, Ken. It's definitely cool. I'm excited. I'm gonna play some games. Yeah. I think the podcast is over now, huh?
Yeah, I do want to say, hardcore retro gamer, you are very right. A Skies of Arcadia HD would be so amazing.
And I know there's a lot of people in the chat, and we kind of hit a couple comments up here and there. I just want you to know, Baggins, welcome to the channel. Maybe you were here before, I don't know, but this is the first time I've really seen you. So thank you for interacting. But thank you to everyone else: Hunter, Christian, Calfman, EPS, Retro Gamer, and anyone I'm not mentioning. I apologize. It's just I'm looking at the end of the chat right now. But yeah, it was great. I love talking about Zelda. So this was a very fun week for me. Let's talk about the amiibo situation next week, where there's an actual real quality of life improvement locked behind the Skyward Sword amiibo. That was the big news of the week. We didn't get to it because we were just talking just random stuff, which it's all right. We got an hour next week to film, so we'll see you guys next week. Dangerous to Go Alone. Please share this video, this channel with a friend, this podcast. Let's talk next week, and we'll see you there 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. See ya!